afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. Hello everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we are here and we have a very special animal out here to show you in the Mara. It is of course a black rhinoceros. Hello again. How cool is that to start the show with one of the most endangered animals in Africa. My name is Taylor and on camera with me today is Manu. And remember, this is a live and interactive safari, so you can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and you can also chat to us via the YouTube chat. Now, I've just seen something, and I want to try and capture it. So let's get straight into that. How am I going to capture this? It's the first tick I've seen, not on an animal, since I've been on the Mara. No! I knew I was going to do that. Oh, I see it. I still see it. Yeah, you can watch the black rhino for a minute. I'm just going to struggle in the car. Because I think it would be quite cool. Oh, no, I'm never going to get it. Okay, well, I'm not going to show you a tick, but I did find one. Hopefully it doesn't crawl onto my leg. Hopefully it will find its way back outside and hop on an animal where it belongs. Now, it's a beautiful black rhino. I can't tell if it's a male or a female just yet. I think it's a male, though. But I'm just guessing. I'm taking a huge gamble. I mean, that animal is in the very, very tall grass. And it's very difficult to tell the difference between the sexes of rhinos when they are standing at such a great distance away. If they have a calf at its side, that will obviously make it a female. And there was also a little rufous-naped lark that you can see just to the left of the rhinoceros. That's that little bird sitting on the shrub. And every now and then you can see it jump up and flutter, which is one of my favorite things that a rufous-naped lark does when it calls. And I'm sure it has been calling, because there are a few of them out this afternoon, but the call's a bit far away. So we'll have to listen to it a little bit later when the opportunity gets a bit better. How great is that? Now, it's just me out in the Mara, so you'll be with me for the next hour before the Juma team joins us. I wonder who's going to be on drive. I wonder if it'll be Tristan and Scott, maybe? I'm not sure who it's going to be, but it'll probably be both of them, in fact. So they'll be joining us in a little bit. But it's a very, very hot day out here. And one of the warmer days we've had, it was 26 degrees Celsius. But the sun is particularly strong here. And something that I have not done is put sunscreen on. Just as those elephants look like they've done. They look like they've been splashing around in the mud. And that's a good enough sunscreen for them. So I'm going to try and dig out mine and put some on. Remember when Byron used to show you how he would apply sunscreen? That was always really funny. I'm not going to do that today, though. You know how all the adults know how to put sunscreen on, and I'm sure you showed your kids, sorry, but now I'm moving, so I'm shaking the camera. Now those elephants are just moving down in the distance on the tree line. I don't think we'll be able to get a closer view of them, I'm afraid. There we go. The first comment for the day is Chat Noir, and you've said you're so happy to see a rhinoceros. Me too. Manu and I, when we drive around, we just sort of shout out things that we're hoping to see in a particular area. And I said maybe about 5 minutes before we found this rhino, it's like, I'd like to start the show with a rhino today. And that's exactly what happened. So it's not a bad start to the Sunset Safari, in my opinion. And hopefully we're going to find some lions. There's plenty things we need to do. But this rhino has actually just been walking around in circles for the last 20 minutes or so. We've been sitting here with it for quite some time. I thought it was going to run away. Normally they see the cars and they move off fairly quickly, but I think because we're at such a far distance, it's not bothered by us. It definitely knows we're here. I haven't been quiet. I'm never quiet. Only when this is a sensitive situation, then I shall be quiet. Otherwise, you can talk normally when you go out on a safari. Now, as we sit here with this rhinoceros, we're all on our own. Richard, you were wondering if there are rangers out here that will watch the rhinos. There are indeed. There is an anti-poaching team. So whenever there are any rhino sightings and somebody calls it in on the radio, there we go. Good spotting, Manu. There's one of the rangers on the way now. They must be heading back maybe to swap shifts. They do a lot of shift work out here. So pretty much, other than us staying out after dark, it's the rangers that protect the rhinos and watch the rhinos that are out and about. And there you just saw them. So the answer to that is yes. In most places where there are rhinoceros, because there are so few of them left in the world, they normally will have some form of protection one way or another. The anti-poaching teams also position themselves up on the Olololo escarpment, which is very important. It's obviously a huge vantage point. We see lions and leopards climbing up trees on termite mounds. Cheetahs do it too. And sometimes the antelope species also stand up and scan around to look for potential threats. The anti-poaching teams do the same thing, and then thankfully, because technology has advanced so far, they use a lot of thermal imaging and night vision and all these different types of equipment to actually help combat rhino poaching. So they don't necessarily have to be with the animal 24/7. They can watch from a distance, and they can dispatch helicopters within the blink of an eye. So yes, the rhinos are quite well looked after in the Mara Triangle. I'm not sure about Masai Mara National Reserve. I'm pretty sure I have seen the anti-poaching teams, but I haven't really seen them sitting with rhinos. Although, I don't think I've seen... No, I have seen one black rhino. Only one, though, on the other side. And that was ages ago, and it was just such a quick view of them. I've had my best sightings out here in the Triangle, in fact, and in this area that we are in now. It's perfect habitat for them. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, we are looking at a black rhino. We don't get any white rhino up here, which is a species of rhino that we see lots of down in South Africa, and particularly the Sabi Sand and the Greater Kruger National Park. There's no shortage of them around there. They're beautiful creatures. And I think if you were seeing a rhino for the first time and you saw it in the situation that we are looking at now, you'd think it was a white rhino because it's standing out in the middle of the grasslands and eating. And it's got its head down as if it was eating grass, but it isn't. There are lots and lots of small shrubs growing amongst all the various species of grass out here in the Mara, and they're obviously quite small, still just coming through the ground, so the leaves will be nice and sweet. So that's what that rhino is going for. It's so quiet out here. Now, MJ, you're wondering if a black rhino would mate with a white rhino? No, it wouldn't. They can't. So you can actually have both species in the same area. They don't interbreed. So where I'm from, in the Sabi Sand, they have black and white rhino, both species, moving about. They typically don't enjoy each other's company. I've seen many, many territorial disputes between black and white rhino. It's actually been quite entertaining because we know that black rhino have got quite a fiery personality and have a very low tolerance of just things in general. And they often instigate the fights. Well, this is from what I've seen. I have also watched a white rhino make... it's as if it had spotted it, or the wind changed, and it picked up the scent on this black rhino. It came charging down a hill and ran a couple of 100 meters as fast as it could towards the black rhino, and all you could hear was thud, 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 and branches crashing. At first I thought it was an elephant. Then we saw the big white rhino, and they chased each other off into the distance. They ran back up another hill through a euphorbia thicket. This is down in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, on the southeast coast, on a reserve I worked at many years ago. And I've seen them having proper fights too, which is quite spectacular. Of course, white rhinos, being much larger than the black rhinos, always come off as the winner. Size does matter when you're out here in the bush, but the black rhino did put up a good fight, and there was no serious injury, so don't worry about that. They were fine. Ooh. Now, Tom, you're wondering if any of the guides have ever come across a snare before. I have. I can only just talk about the experience for myself. So I've found snares on bushwalks before, which I've then removed and taken back to camp and disposed of. I've also seen snared animals. I've seen a snared lion before, which was not quite nice. I have seen elephants, many elephants that have lost the tips of their trunks, or sometimes even a bit more, half of their trunks to snares. And it's particularly, you do see it a lot. I actually have seen most of the snared animals down in South Africa, and it was often when they went into the Kruger National Park. Obviously, because the Kruger is such a massive area, the Greater Kruger, 4.5 million hectares of land, it's a very difficult place to try and police and to patrol. So the rangers do their absolute best. And sometimes there'll be the odd snare that just slips through or is overlooked, and then unfortunately an animal will end up with it on. But in that case, though, we will call the vets. The same thing would happen here. We'd call the Kenyan Wildlife Services or the David Sheldrick Veterinary Services that they have in the Mara Triangle too. Either of those, And down in South Africa, we contact the Sabi Sand, Wildtuin, their conservation team, or the Kruger National Park Rangers. And any animal that has been snared, you report, you try and take a photo, give as much information as you can. And if you can, even better, to stay with the animal until help gets there. Because if they do just wander off, then they could be lost forever and might not get the help that they need. And we try not to interfere, but human-wildlife conflict is a real thing, and not just here in Africa, but all over the world. So we need to try our best to help the animals where we can, especially when it's us as humans that are in fault. It looks like there's quite a bit happening down at the river. I think we might be quite lucky today. I think it's nice and warm. That Rhino did also look like it had a bit of mud on it, so perhaps it had been wallowing about. A few oxpeckers on top of it, and the odd elephant just in the distance. So maybe we'll head down there. Mr. P, you're wondering if there's any albino black rhinos? I've never seen one before. That's not to say that there haven't been any that have been reported, but I don't think that's a very common thing. I think if something was cited like that, we would have heard about it. That would have definitely made the front page of most newspapers or social media platforms. So I haven't seen it, but I don't know, maybe you can pop it into Google and see if there was one a couple of years ago before I was guiding and really was paying attention as to what was going on. Okay, let's keep moving though. Let's see if we can get a different angle on this black rhino. We'll try it out. And then my other plan for the day, I've got many things, I'll tell you that in a minute. Sorry, it's just getting a question. I'll tell you my plan in a minute. So just know, you're wondering what is the difference between a black and a white rhino. I'm just going to find another gap here, a different angle. There's quite a few differences, and unfortunately this black rhino hasn't made it easier for us today for me to show you exactly, because of it hiding in the long grass. So black rhinos are much smaller in size. The easiest way is actually just by looking at the head. And if this rhino would be kind enough to pop its head up above the tall grass, you'd see that it has got very, very pointy lips rather than a big square mouth like a white rhino has. And that's just because they're feeding on two different things. So white rhinos are typically grazers, and they eat a whole lot of grass every single day, whereas black rhinos will eat leaves and stems and small forbs and all those types of things. And so their dung is a lot more coarse. Their dung actually looks a lot more like elephant dung than what a white rhino's dung is. Obviously, because the white rhino's dung is just bits of grass in it. We haven't seen too many, or I haven't seen too many dung middens out here. I found one the other morning, and which I showed you. But that's also because the grass is so long, so it just conceals it. And the population of rhinos is not particularly huge out here. So there aren't many dung midden, obvious massive dung middens like we see in the Sabi sand. So that's the main difference. You can also look at their tracks. A black rhino track is much sort of smaller in comparison to a white rhino track. And if you also see the way that their head is positioned a lot higher, whereas a white rhino, the head's typically always on the ground. They've got massive neck to support, and big shoulders to support their heavy head that drags along the ground, hoovering up grass. And then black rhino, please turn so we can see the humps on your back. And black rhino's got 2 humps on its back, whereas the white rhino has got 3. No, it's not going to show us. Sorry, it's a little bit difficult, but hopefully we'll be able to see as we go along. Will be quite nice. Or I'll just pull some pictures up a little bit later. Okay, thank you, Rhinoceros, for being so kind. Okay, so let me tell you my plan very quickly. So my plan is to head to Sure, Manu, sorry. It was a hole of sorts, but it was hidden by the mud, and we just slid right into it. So I would like to try and find the marsh breakaway pride and see those new cubs. I believe you saw them yesterday afternoon with Ralph, if I'm not mistaken, and I think you've seen them with Jamie. They've been evading me at all costs, so I would like to try and find them. I have no idea where they've been hanging around though, so we're just having a quick squiz about here. They do like this area too. Many different prides of lions around here, and just, well, not many, that's nonsense, I lied there. Let me retract that statement. There are 2 prides of lions that like it around here. The marsh breakaways, which is the 3 lionesses with 4 older cubs, that are almost, or just under 6 months, and then now they've got these 3 youngsters that can't be more than about 3 months old or so. And who else? And we've got the Angamas, which is 4 lionesses, and I've only ever counted 13 cubs, but when we see them again we can try, but every time I've seen them I've always counted 13 cubs. And then the Triangle Boys, the coalition of males that live around here, they're also known as the Chitwa timber males. They get their name from the airstrip and the Beyond camp, which we saw over TV. If you remember, if you watched Big Cat Week, if you watched the Safari Live special, you would have seen that. You would have seen those boys with me. So yeah, so there's a few. Oh, and then there's my 2 favorite lionesses, the ones that like to hang around in the marsh, which I'm hoping we get to see a little bit later too. We saw them on the way home last night. They weren't close to the road though, which was a pity, but they could also be about here, and they normally put on quite a nice show for us. But I've also only had really nice sightings of them in the morning, so I don't think I've really spent much time or been able to find them at night. Let's have a look here. Wait, there's this lilac-breasted roller that's very unhappy. Well, there's 2 of them. Flying right past the car. That was cool. How great was that? There's a pair of them. And now you can also see how warm it is. You can see how they're holding their beaks open. They're not particularly happy with the heat. They were mobbing a fiscal of sorts, and they didn't like it. Obviously, fiscals can be quite aggressive birds. Oh no, it's not. It's all... Yeah, it is. It is a greyback. Anyways, and I'm actually trying to think. I haven't seen any savage behavior by this particular species. The fiscal shrikes are my favorite, the butcher birds. They kill lots and lots of other birds, and there's a lot of them. They're all around here at the moment. And they normally sort of make these buffets where they will sort of skewer their prey, whether it's grasshoppers or young bird chicks, you name it, onto thorny trees. But I haven't seen that behavior being exhibited out here. And sometimes chameleons too. They like to do it with chameleons. So they were mobbing them. They weren't happy with them at all. Let's carry on. All these roads are getting so bumpy now with all the rain and all the big vehicles coming through. It hasn't been too great. So, update from today. Manu, did you have a good day? Manu had a fantastic day. I, on the other hand, was exceptionally lazy. So I've got so much energy because I've done nothing. Nothing the whole day. I ate breakfast. I hula hooped a little bit. I did do that. I was hula hooping. I read and did some research, and then that was it. I did a safari parkour, and I kind of regret not going on a safari parkour today because Manu the machine found a python that was about 3 meters or so, probably even a little bit bigger than that, climbing up a tree down in the river on one of the routes we normally take. And that's really cool because I've only seen one African rock python since I've been up here, which was with Sebastian when we were across the other side of the river, and we had that young python striking at the crowned cranes and the Egyptian geese. That was quite a spectacular sighting. And that's it. Seen many other snakes about, but no more pythons. But I feel like today might be a good day. What do you think, Manu? Hey? It's hot. There's a lot of water around. Maybe we get lucky. It would be quite cool. So we will be checking out a lot of the little marshy sections around here to see if we can find any sunbathing or any of the river crossings. Maybe there's going to be one twisted around a log. I suppose while I drive I should actually have a look around and find some animals here, so you don't have to sit me talking nonsense all the time. Mia, you're wondering what is my favorite part or favorite thing about the Mara? Everything. It's so beautiful out here. Just the fact that, you know, even though you can drive for a long time and just see grass and some trees and sometimes not even the odd bird, it can be so quiet. The scenery out here is just spectacular, and it's so nice to be I don't know, it's so vast. You don't feel claustrophobic. Sometimes I find with the vegetation in the Sabi sand, even when I was guiding down in the southwestern corner of the Sabi sand a few years ago as well, it was, I don't know, I always felt like I was just claustrophobic, even though I knew it was massive and it was open. Vegetation is very dense. Here it's a bit more sparse in these open areas, and I love the marsh. the marshy areas are just spectacular for bird life, lots of insects, so that's quite fascinating, and also good areas to go slipping and sliding on, which is one of my favorite things to do. I haven't even bothered to clean my car because it just gets so dirty at the moment. Now, Sue, you're wondering if there's another ecosystem like the Mara in the world? No. As far as I'm aware, this is completely unique. I think something that could maybe be slightly similar would just be the northern corner of Tanzania, basically where the border is. Other than that, I think this is very, very special. I mean, even in South Africa, I can't remember seeing anything like this. The only thing to me that looks familiar, nothing here reminds me of the Sabi sands, but it does remind me of my hometown, Port Elizabeth, with you sort of move an hour and a half out to the reserves where I used to work on, and there it was particularly beautiful because it also has these sort of mountains with lots of euphorbias and all these different types of things, which was quite cool and very pretty. And the bird life is quite similar with the Narina trogons. I'm just thinking, see, they've been hanging around here. Maybe we'll go that way. Mr. P, you're wondering what is the temperature at the moment. It's about 26 degrees Celsius, 90 something degrees Fahrenheit. It's hot, but it's not humid today, which is quite nice. So I don't know if we're going to get a downpour or not. Typically when the afternoons get quite humid, we have these massive thunderstorms. They're quite spectacular. Not one that rains upon the whole Mara, just pockets of them. They're quite nice to watch. Seen some buffalo up ahead. I'm going to see what's going on. There's a few that are having a bit of a tussle, which could be quite cool to watch. Let's have a look at elephants. Maybe we'll get some swimming elephants again today. I think the weather's going to be good. If they were swimming yesterday, they're surely going to have to swim today. Oh no, of course you buffalo have to stop when I get closer. Tusk, tusk. Let's have a quick look here. Buffalo. Oh, and this part is dried out nicely. We can actually drive through it. Oh, there's a toad. Okay. I'm getting distracted. I said buffalo. Taylor, now you must stop at the buffalo. And quite a nice scene, though. I think it's just the boys that are around this afternoon. Just 4 of them. 5 of them, 6, 7, 8. They're all, no, there's too many. I'm going to stop counting them now. They're everywhere, as buffalo normally are in this area. And I bet there's a whole lot more that I just can't see that are sitting in the little luggers and the drainage lines that have formed. They're all filled with lots of water at the moment. That's going to keep them nice and cool. And that's going to be a hot spot for things like buffalo, for rhinos, elephants, warthogs, anything that does enjoy a wallow. Have you gone in one? Looks like he's just coming out of one. Yeah, very nice though. I thought they were having a tussle, but it seems as that they weren't. Maybe they're just greeting one another, because it's all calm now and settled down. Nothing too exciting happening here, but that's typically buffalo for you. I enjoy watching buffalo when they're with the big breeding herds. That's my absolute favorite, and that's something that I haven't seen for a very long time. I have not seen it at Juma. But the last time I did see it was in the southwestern corner of the Sabi sand, and you'd find these massive herds of buffalo, 200 or 300, even more, up to 800 buffalo, and you'd catch them in the morning, or you would have seen where they were the night before, and you go and sit with them as they're waking up, and the sounds, the smells as well, not particularly great, but it's all about the experience, I suppose. You sit with them as they start to wake up with that beautiful golden light. It's quite nice. And then when they get on the move, and especially when it's in winter, so June, July and August in the Sabi sand, it gets very, very dry. So it's quite sandy, so they kick up a lot of dust, and that's another way you can actually use to spot the big herds of buffaloes. You can just stop and scan, and once you see a big cloud of dust in the distance, you know that there's a huge herd of buff moving around. So I really miss that. We didn't get the buffalo come down last year to the Sabi sand, well, the northern Sabi sand. Now, Ben, who is only 6 years old, hello, Ben, you're wondering if the buffaloes are related to cows. I suppose, Ben, you could say they're sort of like cousins. if you will. But the buffalo are much more angrier than a normal cow, although, Ben, I have to tell you a funny story. I've been charged by a cow before, by a bull. That wasn't very fun. I was quite scared of it. And I've also been charged by a buffalo bull before too, so I've had both. And I think I was more scared when the buffalo chased me, but I definitely leaped out of the way and ran back inside when the cow was charging after me too. I've been charged by lots of domesticated animals. Chickens, geese. Well, I've been rolled around by a kudu when I was really young. My dad loves to tell that story. That's one of his favorite ones. He said we were at a family friend's farm and I'd gone exploring, as you can imagine, because I don't do what I'm told ever. And that hasn't changed since I've got older either. And I went outside and they had this pet kudu and it rolled me around. It was very gently rolling me around on the ground. I don't know, I can't remember it very well, but my dad always tells it. And he said all he could hear was, "Help me, help me." And they were inside, probably at the bar or something, having lunch, and then they came running outside, and there I was, just being very gently rolled around on the ground. So that's my story. But yes, but the amount of animals that have actually chased me around is terrifying, especially farmyard animals. Horses, oh my goodness, the horses can be painful sometimes. Especially my one horse, I had a big warm blood, and he would come charging towards me when I'd go and fetch him in the paddock. I would just whistle, or he would see my mom's car, and then he would start running, and he'd get so excited, and he'd forget that he was a monster of horse. He was 16 hands and probably weighed about 600 or 700 kilograms, and I'd had him since he was a baby as well. So he just thought he was like a dog, and he'd push you around all the time. He was more of a donkey than anything, old Remo. Rachel, you said you've been chased by a llama. I hope it didn't try and spit at you as you were trying to get away. I feel like llamas could be quite sort of sneaky in that sense, that just when you think you're safe, they launch a huge gobball at you. That wouldn't be pleasant. I would like to pat a llama. That's on my list of animals to touch. I would not like to touch one of these buffalo. So let's carry on. Let's keep seeing if we can find our lions. Because if we do find our lions, and we know that those cubs, the young ones, we're not going to be able to view at night. Even though we do have the infrared, we'll still call it a negative sighting. They're just too young. You want to be hanging around them, especially with all the hyenas that are in the area, the other lions. It's rather just best to view them out during the day when Mom feel a lot more comfortable too. Manu, are we going to get stuck? Never. I don't know. Okay, we have to go through here if we want to get to this other side, so we're just going to take a gamble. I really hope we don't get stuck, because that is going to be terribly awkward, as it's only me for the next little bit. Whee! We made it! Woo! Look, Warthogs. Hang on. Have a look at our piggies. Always good to see some Warthogs. There was an Impala, but he didn't stick around. He's gone now. Let's see what you guys are up to. Not much. No, just also wallowing, grazing. There's plenty of animals behind them too. It's quite special. There's buffalo, there's a topi, there's Thompson's gazelle. So it just shows you how this marsh area is so fertile, and it brings about an abundance of animals coming to feed through here. It's a very popular spot. Lovely. I'm glad the wind is picking up a little bit though. You can start to see the grass moving a little now. Oh, those look like two young boys, so there wouldn't be any piglets there. Yeah, two young boars. Been kicked out of their family group. Now, Bill, you're wondering if the rangers mow the grass when it gets a bit too long. Thankfully not. Although my dad would have an absolute field day out here on his sit-on lawn mower, which was a chore that I used to have to do growing up. It would take us 3 hours to mow our lawn. We lived on a small holding, so like a small type farm type vibe, and that's what my brother and I had to go and do, was mow the lawn. We don't have to do that out here. There are plenty of animals that do it for us, and particularly when the migration comes around, the wildebeest are heavily responsible, and the zebra, of cutting the grass quite low down to a nice acceptable level. But they didn't do a good job in the triangle this year. From my understanding, everybody was saying that the grass is actually quite long. Even after the wildebeest munched away on it, they still left some tall spots. So I think February is going to be interesting. I think in February we're going to be driving around like this. I'm going to have to stand up scanning for animals because it's going to be hard. So I see a car that is stopped up ahead. We just come from that side. I wonder if there's something sitting in the lugger. If they're looking at a bird. Because they have been staying there for a particularly long time. And I don't think they're looking at the buffalo. Katie, you're wondering what primates do we get in the Mara? We see a lot of, not chukma baboons, that's in South Africa. We see olive baboons and vervet monkeys and Sykes monkeys every now and then. Those are the most common type. Whee, whee. Okay, lion! Woohoo! 2, 3. Is this the pride we're looking for? I think it might be. I think it is. I can see. You can obviously see that lioness. She's out there. She's the most obvious one to spot. And then just down on the ridge, utilizing that for shade, you can see it's quite a good spot. And it looks like there's a little cub there just to the right, just laying in between Mom. I don't know if that's one of the older ones or one of the new youngsters. I think I'm going to go ahead and say that this is the marsh pride, the marsh breakaway pride, which is 3 lionesses and now 7 cubs. But the only thing is we'd have to sit here for a while to see if one of the adults will go out and perhaps go and fetch the cubs. I don't think they'd be too far. And probably just laying in one of these luggers, just a little bit away. Sometimes the adults need a bit of a break too. They will just pop them off to the side and then they'll carry on with their days, especially when they're resting up. It's quite nice just to have a bit of a break here and there. But out in the sun. I can't believe they're sitting out in the sun. Oh my goodness, now I need to try to do this. Rachel, without scaring the lions, you said lions, woohoo! Something like that. Well, I hope that you said it like that. Something that I do often is I'll go type ha ha ha, or lol, or woohoo, but I'm saying it with an absolute straight face. I'm lying about my emotions. That's terrible, and I'm sure that every single one of you are also guilty of doing that. But I can't believe they're sitting out in the open. I mean, it is really hot. We often see lions enjoying the sun in the early hours of the morning, especially after a chilly night. But typically they'll do what these other 2 girls are doing and seek some shelter under a tree, under a shrub, or against a lugger like this. Sometimes they'll even lay in muddy water if it's really, really hot. I've seen that in South Africa before. So I wonder if she will move. She doesn't even seem to be panting. It doesn't seem to be bothering her at all. Oh my goodness, look at that action. There's one lioness rolling on the left. She's panting. I don't think that's from a full belly though, or from a meal. I think that is because it is just warm today. At least we know where they are. Maybe what we will do though is, I don't think that we should spend our time just sitting with them while they're fast asleep. We can come back here in a little bit. How does that sound, Manu? I think let's do that. Let's go and explore. Let's go see if there's any cool birds in the forest. So what we'll do is we'll go back. Oh, the sun is so bright. My eyes have to close them when I drive. It's a bit terrifying. Take care. You're wondering about the soil and whether it's predominantly clay-based and does it drain fairly quickly. Not all of it is typically clay-based. The black cotton soils, which is where the marsh is, and pretty much along the river, all the way along the river, and then there's some parts also down a little bit further west that are quite have got quite a bit of clay content to them. So yes, it's the thing that surprises me the most after how much rain we have. And then it just needs a morning and an afternoon, and then it's back and it's dry again. I mean, yesterday when we were driving around, this was all slushy, and now it's completely dried up. So it does dry up fairly quickly. Oh, a little 3-banded plover. I haven't seen one of them for a while. No, come back. Come back. Okay, Manu, I'll get it again. We'll go to the edge. We'll try not get stuck. We'll see if we can view it a little bit further along. It just flew to the water's edge. I scared it. And there's a spur-wing lapwing. It's all happening here. Where's the spur-wing lapwing? Where's our little three-banded plover gone? It was sitting at the water's edge. But they are so tiny that they are quite hard to spot when you lose them. It could just be behind a piece of grass. It could be in an animal's footprint. But it's gone now. We'll try find another one. There's a car that's trying to come through here, so let me not hold them up. Let me carry on. Now, Tanis, you're wondering if there's any animals out here that use other animals for protection. Well, essentially, the way that the ecosystem works and the way that the animals live is that they all try and help each other out. Well, the herbivores try and help each other out, and predators don't really try and help each other out because they're all fighting over the same thing. They all want the same thing. So, for example, let's look at that black rhino and the rufous nape lark we had a little bit earlier, which was a bird. If a lion were to come walking through the long grass, that bird would probably start alarming. And all the animals can understand one another. Even though they make different sounds and they sound different, essentially they're speaking the same language. And that bird would then tell the rhino, and the rhino would be alerted to it and would probably start looking for it. I don't know if the bird would say which direction it's going. I don't know if it calls it in like a lock, like the guides call sightings in on the radio. I'm just joking. They probably don't do that. And yeah, so we see it a lot in forested areas. You hear the birds going ballistic, and it might be a snake in the tree. Then you'll hear the monkeys starting to alarm, etc., etc. So they do all try and help each other out. And then something that we have seen a lot of is elephants and buffalo charging into sightings where lions are killing other animals, either a buffalo. We've seen lots of, and we've seen it live, where we've had elephants come in and try and save the buffalo. I think they're just responding to the distress calls, and lions and elephants don't like each other at all, and an elephant will take any opportunity it can to chase them around. We obviously had that great experience. Manu and I had that great experience the night before, on Thursday night, with the Angamas and two different herds of elephants that weren't happy with them. So that was quite special to see. I thoroughly enjoyed that sighting. It was probably one of the best nights I've ever had spending out in the bush in terms of action. And it being in such close proximity, and pretty much we were laughing about it this morning, how amazing it is to hear a lion roar, and Manu and I were going, yeah, it's really wonderful, except when you're trying to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're roaring right next to your car, and we were just going, shh, shh, trying to sleep, we've just fallen asleep, cats, come on. And they would do that. Every time I'd close my eyes, they would start roaring, and then because the car's vibrating so much, I'd just about fall out and need to hold on. I'm obviously just being dramatic, it's not that bad. Bye, buffalo! Good, we're not stopping with them because they were, well, they were pretty stinky, and also there were lots and lots of bugs on them, and I don't feel like being covered in bugs today. Okay, let's go look for some cool birds, and also there's a tree I want to find today. What is it called? I've forgotten what it's called. Oh, presents! Oh, flowers. I need to identify them. That's actually, I lied. I picked flowers today and was trying to identify them, and then I got sick of it because I don't have a flower book with me, and it's particularly hard. No, where is it? Warburgia ugandensis. That's a tree. Ugandan greenheart. That's the one we need to be looking for today, and I think we're going to find it around the forests, maybe. So I have an idea what it looks like. To me, it looks like a giant guarri tree. So in the Euclea family. So we will try and look for some of those and see if we can find it. Apparently the elephants like to eat it quite a bit. And I'm also quite curious. I'd like to try and taste the leaves. So we'll see. But I better be careful. I better make 100% certain that it is that tree that if we do find it. Otherwise, you know, I could end up just killing myself. That could happen. I don't want that to happen. So we might have to do the good old how to test if a plant is poisonous. Now, trim bob, you're wondering what are the differences in wildlife with regards to the different areas that I've been in? Where to start? Okay, so I first started guiding down in the Eastern Cape, so I'm talking about it there, the southeast coast of South Africa. That was very different, and the reason why I say it was so different was because all those farms were obviously natural areas, and the Europeans came in and they took over and they turned a lot of them into farms, which was quite nice at the time. Then people realized how important it was to preserve the natural vegetation. So, you know, for the last 20 odd years, a lot of these old farms have been restored and allowed for the natural vegetation to grow through. And then a lot of the animals that would naturally occur there have been hunted out. Hunting was big at that time, many years ago in those particular areas. So people have had to reintroduce animals. So sometimes there's antelope species or animals that just shouldn't actually even be there. So Addo Elephant National Park, they're quite good. They only have indigenous species of animals there, so no white rhino. They've got black rhino, Diceras bicornis species down there. They've got elephants, they've got kudu and bushbuck and things like that occur down there. And then the vegetation's very thick, so depending on what type of vegetation you have also determines the species of herbivores that you'll have, and then in return what types of predators. So the Eastern Cape for me was the best area I've worked in for smaller animals. So for caracal, for servals, for what else? Aardvark, aardwolf. I did see honey badgers while I was down there, and the birding was just to die for too, because you got the beautiful forests and the vegetation, the big yellow woods, which is South Africa's national tree, all growing down in the forest with the waterfalls. Very pretty, very similar to where I go safari parkouring. And then in Zambia, that was the next place. Zambia was stunning. If any of you are familiar with Mana pools, very nice. So I worked in the Zambezi National Park, which was essentially across the river, and Mana pools is in Zimbabwe, and there's the Zambezi River that divides the two countries, and it's very much the same. So the big Fadeherbia albidea trees, the Anna trees, growing along the river, and then massive open plains, marsh areas like this, lots of big palm trees, so lots of the Phoenix reclinatas, and huge herds of buffalo and big groups of elephants. And then what else? And then the escarpment. So the escarpment, like the Olololo escarpment. So it's kind of similar, but not really. Also a little bit different. And then this is just out of this world. Ooh. Handicap visions. You're wondering if there's any woodpeckers in the Mara. I'm sure there are. I actually have not seen one woodpecker yet. Can you believe that? I'm sure there most certainly will be. Shall we have a look? Let's actually stop in the shade and just have a break from driving. There's a couple of animals about. We'll get closer to them because the road meanders around that way. Whew. I also might have to have a sip of water at some point. My mouth is getting quite dry. But let's have a look at woodpeckers. Where are you? Not woodhoopoe, woodpecker. There we go, 322. No, come past it. Okay, we should see the cardinal here. We should see the brown-backed woodpecker. We should also see, turn the next page, the bearded woodpecker, which we see a lot of in the Sabi sand. Yeah, those ones. I think those are going to be the most common ones that we would see. So we must keep an eye out. I have been looking though, and I haven't seen anything woodpecker-like flying around. But maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough. And the green-backed, sure, but that's on the southeast coast. Well, yeah, no, so we wouldn't really see it. Okay, very nice. So we'll promise we'll keep an eye out, and hopefully we'll get to put a couple of them on screen. There's still so many more birds out here that I have not had a chance to even view. They're so quick. I think if we did walking here, we would see a lot more birds. A lot of them in these forested areas. I'll check up on the tops of the trees. Something that I do miss is hearing the bearded woodpeckers. That call is so beautiful. It's a common sound in the Sabi sand. Very nice one too. Okay, I love it up here. It's so stunning. Shall we check to see if the bees are around? Do you remember we came across a tree that had toppled over, and then Scott also decided to drive the same route that I did, not realizing it. And then Scott found me and David, and he thought that we were having car problems, but we weren't having car problems. I was just having a look at the bees. So let's see if they're still in here. I didn't do the segment on the bees, but Scott did the segment on the bees. It was quite nice, actually. That's a bit bumpy. Also just checking under these shady spots to see if there's not a leopard or anything laying underneath it. So here's the tree. I think it blew over and the soil was quite soft. Let me go forward. Now there's a little knot in the tree. There we go. And you see that dark hole? Just down to our left on the bottom. There we go. Just a little bit to the right. There we go. Center screen. And if you go down, there we go. In that cavity, that's where the bees had a hive. I don't know how long that hive had been active for, but it doesn't look like there's anything here. Maybe a few of you can pull up some screenshots from that sighting. It must have been about a month ago. It was just before Scotty left, and you would see them all around that entrance. Obviously, it's not a suitable spot anymore. I wouldn't imagine that they would stay there for too long, because now that the trees toppled over, they had that height advantage. So a lot of animals weren't able to climb in and steal the honey, or even just eat bees, because there's plenty of things that eat bees and love to eat the honey or to eat the larvae and the wax, and that would be quite easy now and accessible to so many different animals. So they've obviously moved out. Oh, Manu and his dragonflies. Oh yes. Look at that. Oh my goodness, you can even see its mouth parts moving. That is stunning. I wonder why it's moving its mouth like that. I wonder if it's just finished a meal. Balancing on, you can see the wind is moving the branch slightly and blowing the wings about. They've got massive eyes though. They've got incredible vision. They can pretty much see all the way around except for directly behind them. That's sort of the spot that they're restricted. They can't see, and they need very good vision because they catch their prey while they're in flight. Just about to get blown off. That's a typical trick of a dragonfly. It might even come fly back. It's actually just sat even closer, Manu. And you see it. Look there. There we go. You got it? That on this branch right here in front of us. There we go. Even closer now, giving you a much better look. That's typical what they do. They fly up and then land down on the same perch. So just to help them, not only do they use their eyesight when they have to catch their prey, look at their legs. Look at their legs. Can you see those tiny little hairs? Well, they're not hairs. They're actually spikes. And those will be used to grab, they use their front legs to grab onto their prey. But those little barbs will actually hook onto whatever they catch. And so that when they do fly out, magic, look at that, that their prey can't escape, which is quite cool. And then they will go and eat it. I'm just trying to think if they eat it on the wing, if they eat it while they're flying, or if they actually perch themselves and then feast upon their prey. I'm trying to think if I've seen them gobbling up anything. Sorry, can I have that, the name of who said that comment again? Sorry, I didn't get the name. So I believe some of you are saying that it looks like the superhero Deadpool. Yes, very creative. It does indeed. So we just try and do that today. Try and find animals that look like superheroes is another one. There's an abundance of dragonflies out at the moment. There's so many of them, especially when you go into those marshy areas. Now, it's quite interesting. Males and females, trying to tell the difference between the two is quite difficult. But one of the most obvious ways of sexual dimorphism between dragonflies is with color. So just like birds, typically the males have got brighter colors. It's the same thing with the dragonflies. For most of the species, of course, there is going to be the odd exception. And I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly which species those are because I don't have a dragonfly book here. And it's so difficult. I'm actually quite sad that I didn't bring more of my books. I thought I was only going to be here for 3 months. But I've been here for a lot longer. I wonder if this is the same species of dragonfly that we had yesterday. And I know that James Richard, he tagged me in something. I'm just quickly going onto Twitter to have a look. But it takes so long to open. and then I'll tell you. Let me just quickly have a quick look. Although the tail's slightly different, but we've still got the red and the black markings on the edge of the wings, and the dragonfly from yesterday was identified as a barbed percher. So thank you, James, for that. That's very kind of you to have a look. It is really difficult to try and identify plants and birds and insects if you don't actually have a book. Searching the internet can be particularly difficult, and so I might have to just try and buy a couple of books in Nairobi and see if I can get some. Oh, but very nice, Manu. You've been enjoying the insects lately, hey? He's been practicing on butterflies when the stream was down and it wouldn't come back on. He was trying to zip around, so we'll see if we can find some butterflies for him to play around with and try and chase after them. Very impressive camera work, let me tell you. Okay, what do we got next? We've got something slightly bigger than a dragonfly, something that a dragonfly would not eat, and that's Impala. But we'll go have a look at the herd now. I do miss the big groups of Impala in the greater Kruger. That was always quite nice. Oh, very skittish. Also, not like the Impala I'm used to. Hello, ladies. Don't be nervous. It's just me. I don't blame them for being nervous, though. Hanging about on the forest's edge. Lots and lots of predators that could just be hiding away. I'm very quickly going to drink some water because soon my tongue is going to get stuck to the top of my palate. Ah, that's better. Well, they're starting to settle down now. Just perhaps they haven't seen too many vehicles over the last few days and a little bit on the jumpy side. They're allowed to be nervous. They've got good reason to. But they're beautiful creatures, the Impala. And one thing I am hoping for, it's something Manu and I saw the other day, and we were so sad neither of us were quick enough to pull our cameras out to get a picture, was a group of waterbuck, and they were running through a marshy area, so there was all this water spraying up. And I reckon Impala would do the same thing if they were trying to evade predators, and that could be quite spectacular. Imagine them leaping through some of these wetlands, and the beautiful light. Ow, 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 something just bit me. Whew. That was not nice. If you come back here, I'm going to swat you and kill you. And I'm going to spray bug spray on my legs, so hopefully when they bite me that doesn't taste nice. It's a natural one. Now, Marco, you're wondering how fast can these beautiful antelope run. Impala are fairly quick. They could quite easily reach speeds in excess of 60 kilometers an hour, probably a little bit quicker than that. But it's not the fact that an Impala can run fast. It's its athletic ability. The way that it leaps and bounds to try and get away from predators is really spectacular. If any of you have ever seen an Impala do a leap at full sprint, I mean, it's about 10 meters in length that they will leap. So they're the long distance jumping champions. There's a very excited male. Oh my goodness, that's not how you get the ladies. Where's your class, mister? And of course, this is nature, though. He doesn't know any different. He's not going to take her out to dinner first. But so what he's doing now, this ram is coming through the herd, and he's just checking to see if any of the girls are coming to estrus, also just keeping an eye upon them and maintaining the relationship that he does have with all of these girls. It's a tough job out here, especially having so many females to tend to. Oh, there's a couple. I was just about to say I don't see any little ones, but I think they're all being chased around now. But they also grow up so quickly. When they get to about 3 months, 4 months old, they almost look exactly the same size as the adults. And it is important that they do grow quickly, because if you stay small for too long, you're vulnerable to all the different predators out here. But it's very nice. Okay, let's go. Let's see what else we've got. Next animal, please. We're doing a real safari today, aren't we? I'm so sorry, Faith. Faith is also not directing. I don't know where Ryan's gone. What did you say? I just got Bobby. What would Bobby like to know? Ooh, very nice. This is a conversation that I'll enjoy, or any South African will enjoy, in fact. And it's Bobby. We're wondering if impala are edible like deer. Most certainly. They are tasty. I do find, though, out of the antelope species, impala have the most gamey taste to it. It's quite rich, whereas something like an eland, even a wildebeest, are absolutely delicious, and their flavor is not quite pungent. I don't know. I like impala, but I think I've also eaten so much of it I don't really enjoy it as much anymore. But my favorite animals to sort of, well, if I'm going to eat anything that comes from a bush, it's wildebeest, very nice, and also eland and springbok is very cool too, and it's a lot healthier than eating cows that are raised on all sorts of other things other than just grass, and hormone induced chickens and all that stuff. It's a lot healthier. So they don't necessarily farm these animals like they farm the cows. Carry on, we'll just do a long drive. They'll have them in areas in South Africa, plots of land with natural vegetation, and they just let them go out and they graze and browse and they do their thing. So I'm so sorry, I've got a tickle in my throat now from talking so much. So it's quite good. Very, very nice indeed. And in South Africa it is a big trend. A lot of people are actually moving away from eating farmed animals and rather just eating, the animals that are natural to the area. Here's some waterbuck. Three of them, a male and two females, in the shade. Also a very excited male. He might do a phlegm and grimace for us. Turn around now, or let's see. There's been a lot of male waterbuck trying to mate with females at the moment. There we go. He's going to test and see if he can pick up on any particular sense, if she's coming into estrus or not. Looks like quite a young female though. Oh, here we go. Now, Linda, you're wondering if the Mara waterbuck are the same as the Juma waterbuck. They're not. They're actually subspecies of one another. So this is the Defassa waterbuck species, and they lack the white ring on their rump that the common waterbuck does, which is the waterbuck species we get down in South Africa. And otherwise they're very much the same. Their coat's also a little bit darker up here, but they have the same sebaceous, the oil secreting glands. They're very fluffy, they've got the heart-shaped noses, and they weigh about the same as well. So other than the distribution and the lack of the ring around their rump, they pretty much are the same animal, essentially. And they also don't chew with their mouths closed. That's the truth, isn't it? They're beautiful animals. Very smelly, though. So I'm just trying to think. I mean, I don't think this waterbuck's particularly old. I don't think it's ready to be mated with just yet. I think that young male is just quite excited, because it's normally they're only around about 3-4 years old before a female will come into estrus for the first time. And remember, with every animal, it's even individual specific. Like with humans, sometimes it can come in a little earlier, sometimes it can be a little later. And then the males take a lot longer, just because there's so much more competition around. Not to say that he wouldn't be able to mate with a female now, but there are other bigger, stronger waterbuck out here that would fight him for the females that are in estrus. So, sometimes they might only mate from a few years old, but typically it's about 5 or 6 years old before they'll get the opportunity what am I trying to say here? To be in charge of a herd. Oh, wow. Now, Kathy, great question. You're wondering how long did it take me to learn the difference between all the antelope species? I'm still learning. There are still so many animals that I have not seen, Kathy. A long list of mammals in Africa, antelope species, gazelle species, bird species, all these different animals that I have never ever seen before. So I'll still get there. And that's the thing about the bush, is that you never ever stop learning. It's impossible. It is honestly impossible to say that you know everything. And honestly, if you think that you know everything about the bush, then I think you're particularly arrogant. I wouldn't even think I know 1% of what's going on out here. There's so much to learn. And I mean, if you look at people like Brent and Steph and James and Tristan, who have all been in the industry for well over 10 years, they'll all still tell you how every day they'll see something new, whether it's an animal behavior or a new insect or a new bird. So it's very exciting. It's a very it's a good environment to be in if your brain if you enjoy, stimulating your brain and learning, and if you have a curious mind. You see something, you don't just go, whatever. You go, oh my goodness, I want to know more about that. And that happens so often out here in the bush. Let's see what's around the next corner though. I'm getting quite excited. This drive is just getting better and better. What have we seen? We've seen so many things so far. We've seen lions very quickly, elephant and buffalo, impala, warthog, waterbuck. We also saw some birds. Now we need to find... I'd like to spend some time with a big herd of elephants. I think if we go check around those luggers that I was driving in yesterday towards the end of drive, we maybe get lucky again and find some big herds. We'll get there eventually. And a leopard I'm not so hopeful for. I'll just be surprised if a leopard stumbles across, or if we hear of a sighting. Great, absolutely fantastic. Then we will. You know what we're going to be doing tomorrow though, which we'll be quite excited about, and is we're going to do an all-day safari. We're going to go out in the morning and we're going to go all the way down to the Tanzanian border and spend the whole day out. We got a new repeater up, so we should, if we can find those leucistic hyena, we should be able to put them up on screen, which should be quite nice. So something to look forward to for maybe the end of the morning safari, or perhaps the afternoon, the sunset safari tomorrow. So now another question. Goodness, thank you for all the questions today. I'm really enjoying them, especially seeing as though they've got a long stint. Sometimes the animals are not kind, but they're being quite kind today. And not that I ever have a problem with not talking, but I like the questions. And this one was from Ben, and you're wondering if there is a problem with alien plant species out here. Unfortunately, there's a problem with alien plant species throughout Africa, and that's just because of all the trades and obviously people coming and exploring Africa, bringing plants and fodder for animals to feed on. That would have carried a lot of different seeds. For instance, the jumping jacks that we see, prickly pear. There's plenty prickly pear around in the Mara as well. We see that in South Africa too. And I've actually stopped and showed you the prickly pear before, but we can always do that again if I do see some. What else? There's lots. There's so many. There'll be lots of different flowers that shouldn't be here that were brought in because they thought they were pretty as ornamental flowers, and they just spread like wildfire. But these warthogs are indigenous though. They weren't introduced. This is your natural habitat, and they're quite big. 2 big boars just hanging about, feeding in the shade. Jenny, you were wondering about the sexual dimorphism between male and female warthogs, and luckily they're looking at us. If you look at that warthog, you can see he's got 2 warts, or big sort of cartilaginous. This is going to be a wonderful day. I can't even speak. Anyways, they've got those things on the side of their heads, and they've got 2 pairs of them. So one just below the eyes, and then one above the top layer of tusks. The females only have 1 pair. And then, you can also look at the rear end. That helps you identify them quite easily. Very, very nice. You see that that's a male now. And they're just generally much larger than the girls too. And at this time of the year, most of the females have got either 1 piglet or a group of them. If they haven't lost all of them, unfortunately, they don't normally make it to adulthood. They get snatched up by lots of different creatures. So it's fairly easy to tell the difference between male and female animals. It just takes a little bit of practice, like anything. You're not going to get it on the first go. We still even make mistakes as guides. Sometimes an elephant in the distance, and especially here in the Mara, the elephant cows have got massive tusks, huge tusks. And typically the males get larger tusks than the females, but out here it's exceptional. So from a far distance, very easy to missex an animal. So it's just one of those things. Oh my goodness. Woo! That is exciting. That actually flew by, hey Manu. Right, It seems as though the South African team is up and ready to start the afternoon, and I'm going to send you on board to my dear friend Tristan, who I miss very much.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a swelteringly hot, very bright, very sunny Juma Game Reserve. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Fergus, and we have come to provide backup to Miss Taylor Mack after her marathon little stunt that she's just done by herself. Now, because it's so hot, we've decided that we're going to do a bit of a waterhole run to start with, try and check some of the mud water, see if any of the animals are just taking it easy. I know if I was an animal, that is where I would be right now. And we have got some elephant tracks that have come from Gowrie Dam. Looks as though some of them are going southwards down Twin Dams. You can see there's big round circles on the road in front of me. And so that is what we're going to try and follow and just check if they may be not having a good little swim at Twin Dams, because I would imagine that that's where I would be if I was an elephant. And so might as well go and check there. Also, the other thing is that it is warm, and so we'll try and then go around towards Buffelshoek Dam a little bit later as well. Now, it is live and interactive, so I know Taylor will have told you earlier, but remember, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or YouTube chat if you'd like to get hold of us. Now, Ferg, let's go towards Twin Dams, because sitting in the sun like this without a breeze is not very pleasant at all. It really is very warm. In fact, I think it's somewhere around 40 degrees this afternoon, which is about 110 if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that general vicinity. So it's warm out here, and it means that probably most of our animals are going to be fairly relaxed and trying to find semblance of shade to start the afternoon. I would imagine we're only going to see quite a bit of activity later when it gets a little bit cooler. Now, while I kind of meander my way towards Twin Dams, I'm not the only one out on Juma this afternoon. We've also got a Scotty too hottie who's adding to the temperature here on Juma Game Reserve.
Hello everyone, and welcome on board. My name's Scott Dyson. I'm sure Tristan's told you it's a swelteringly hot day in the Sabi Sands, so I think it's a good spot for us to stop in the shade, and we do have something fairly grotesque to show you. So if you are a bit queasy and don't like seeing things that are not easy to witness, like the head of Impala dangling from a tree, then be warned, because that's what we're about to look at. But it's the most fascinating scene, because somehow this Impala's head has just got perfectly caught, along with the help of its horns, in this tree, and that's how it's stuck there. Now you'll notice that it's quite swollen. It's been here for 4 days now, so the meat is definitely getting quite rancid. And you'll also notice lots of sinewy little bits there, like little ropes dangling down from the neck. That's because hyena this morning were jumping up and grabbing onto as much of the meat as they could possibly grip onto, and then swinging from this Impala's head, literally dangling off the ground. And it was a fascinating sight that Tristan had. The good news is that what remains here is another good meal for Tundi, the female leopard that is responsible for killing this Impala 4 days ago. And we were hoping we were going to find her somewhere on the scene, but alas, I think she is only going to come a little bit later once it has cooled down. So, oof, now the wind's blowing straight towards us, and it's not very pleasant. Not the most pleasant smell, a 4-day-old Impala that's been stewing in the low-felt summer. It's upward of 40 degrees Celsius today, and it's also quite a humid area we're in, so the combination of the temperature and the humidity makes for perfect environments for the meat of that Impala to stew. Two tiny little clouds off there in the distance. I'm wondering when we're going to get some decent rains, because there hasn't been too much rain in the 2 weeks that I've been here, and this is the rainy season. Hello to Caden. You've mentioned that even leopards like to keep the trophies of their kills, and I quite appreciate your humor. And wouldn't it be funny if leopards had all their prized biggest kills stashed in trees all around their area of traverse? It's hugely uncommon for any parts of a kill to remain up in a tree. And usually everything will fall down, and you'll very seldom have traces of a kill or any bones up in the tree. Obviously, there's a lot of scavengers that come in after the leopards that will dislodge any bones from the tree. It's not only hyenas that will scavenge on carcasses, but a lot of birds as well. And I'm guessing there are going to be some hyena that come back onto the scene this evening. It's hyena here this morning, so I'm sure they're going to come back because they know there still is quite a lot of meat there, and they're going to try their luck. So maybe with a little bit of luck we will not only have Tundi here, but also a bunch of hyena who will no doubt give her a hard time. Anyway, it'll make for an interesting scene. And for any of you who are also not on the sunrise safari, we did manage to actually locate on Tundi's den site, her new den site. She's chosen a very, very good spot in and around the Mulwati riverbed. So we got one kind of semi-glimpse of the tiny little furball cub. It's very thick in there, and we didn't want to go too close to her because she can be a little bit moody, Tundi, from time to time, and I think her moodiness is increased when she's got a young little cub, which is understandable because she's naturally very protective of it. So we had a good balance between where we were positioned and get her used to us with cub, and also letting that cub get used to the sounds of our voices, the sounds of the vehicle, because that's imperative if we are going to be in a situation where this young cub is raised, then in a state that it is habituated to us and the vehicles, so we can actually view them. If we didn't spend time with them, the young cubs, a lot of leopard cubs would be very shy of the vehicles and us, and that would make our lives a misery, because we wouldn't be able to share their lives with you. Very good. We're going to continue now towards the treehouse waterhole on this hot day. I'm hoping that there's going to be some action there. And while we head on, you are heading off to Tristan, who has found some pigs.
We have indeed. We found two little piglets that are now trotting off, because that's what piglets do. They don't stick around for very long, and they were wallow at Baboon Pan. They were in the mud itself, and we've come across and just about it is so hot to animals when they have a really nice little wallow, but at the end of the day, that's the way it goes. Now, our areas that we were tracking seem to have crossed south. They've beaten us to the punch and have gone over boundary before we could find them. I can see that they weren't here long ago, because there's a little mud wallow behind me, and that little mud wallow has been kicked, and there's mud absolutely sprayed everywhere, and the mud is still glistening, so it means that the Ellies have crossed fairly recently to the south and onto Little Gowrie. I'm not sure what's going on today. There must be a party on Little Gowrie, because everybody has gone that direction today. It seems as though it's just a mass kind of exodus out of Juma. I mean, you've got Tingana's gone there, Hosanna's gone there, Shadow and Ka gone there, our elephants and our warthogs, and well, there's some impalas too, so it's just everybody out and about at the moment. And you can see how they're all trying to just find some shade, so they're moving from kind of shady tree to shady tree, and so I would imagine that this is going to kind of be a recipe for the afternoon, getting into areas where there's nice big shady sort of spots, and that's going to help keep these animals nice and cool, and hopefully will lead to some success for us. So I think Mulawati will be a good place for us to check, and then like I said, go up to Pilsuk Dam, because that's a nice big dam and is really good if Ellies want to swim. And you can see, look at how that Impala is kind of nodding its head. It almost looks like it's kind of has this little sort of beat going in its ears. It's almost expect to have headphones in, but of course that's just to try and cool it down. So as much as cats pant, the impalas and various other antelopes will also quicken their rate of breathing because of that moisture content around the mouth and even on the nostrils. As they breathe like that, slow, the evaporation takes place, and that cooler blood then goes back into the body. So they really are hot as well, and it must be difficult in conditions like this for all of the animals, let alone the cats and the big animals like elephants and buffalo. Even these smaller antelope will struggle, because it really is energy sapping when it is as warm as this. So Megan, you're wondering if there's a difference between the impalas that we see here at Juma and those that are in the Mara. Well, in terms of the actual kind of species, no. So it's not a subspecies, it's not a different type of impala, it is the same species, but there is certain little physiological differences which are to do with the and various other things. So if we have a look at our impalas over here, they tend to have much smaller sets of horns than what you see in the Mara. The Mara impalas tend to have massive big horns, and you probably find that's to do with the terrain. Here is very dense and thick, and so the bigger the set of horns, the more they get in the way, the more they catch on bush and all kinds of other things. So having a smaller, sleeker set is probably a little bit better. That coupled with the fact that there might be a different nutrient element to the vegetation that the impala eat in the Mara as opposed to here, it helps with horn growth. It's also probably to do with the fact that the impalas in the Mara don't have a specific rutting season. They will compete with each other all the way through the year, and whereas these guys are only in once a year, so the horn structure doesn't need to be as developed and as big for constant use. So that's the main IDing feature between the two, is just the size of the horns. In terms of the body size, I don't think there's too much of a difference. I mean, Taylor and Scott will be in a better position to comment on that, but I don't think there's too much of a size difference between the two of them in terms of actual body. But horns, most definitely, the impalas in the Kenya are much, much larger than what you see here. Right, guys, I think we're going to let them meander on. I'm sure we're going to find a number of them sitting in little shady sections like this. For a second there, I thought there might be something happening, because they keep kind of looking over their right shoulder and looking back towards that pan system, and this is the exact spot where Shadow and the cub crossed this morning. So I thought maybe it was worth just kind of double checking, but I think it's actually the Warthogs that they're watching, because the Warthogs went sort of running off back that way just now when I last saw them, although they seem a little bit nervous, don't they? I wonder if something's going on. They haven't let out a snort yet. They're standing very snorting, and if they see a predator, most definitely will be a big loud snorting that will go on. So I'm just going to watch these guys for a little bit longer, but while we do that, let's head back all the way to the Masai Mara and to Taylor McCurdy and see what she's getting up to now.
Well, we're just bumbling now. We're not really racing off anywhere. What we have seen, though, is a couple of greater white egrets that are, I would assume, fishing. sorry about that, everybody. The technical gremlins were very mean. I think they were internet gremlins today. And we've got another mean animal out here, which is this elephant. He's very grumpy. I'm not sure why he's so grumpy. Oh, it could be a number of different reasons as what could actually be wrong. He did mock charge us and shake his head, so I had a stern talking to him. And now he's tucked his tail between his legs and he's walking off. But you can still see that he's investigating. He's watching us. We're not quite out of his way just yet. He's just checking. But now I'm confused. Now I don't know where the road goes. We used to be able to go through here. And I've just seen a car that's come from the side. And I have absolutely no idea where they went. So I'm going to try and get through this. I'm probably going to get stuck, which is going to be lots of fun. But I'm going to send you back down to South Africa, where Scott, the last time I heard, was on his way to Treehouse Dam, and that's a favourite place for the elephants to swim.
So, we've just popped in at one of the water holes called Treehouse Dam, and there was nothing really happening there. So, quite a lot of sign of elephants that had been there recently, but sadly we've missed them, and we're now heading across to Twin Dams, another water hole, in the hope that this hot weather is going to cause some animals to be thirsty and possibly even want to have a swim. Animals like warthog, buffalo and elephants will all wallow on hot days like this. So I think the water holes are our best bets. I think Tristan was also planning on heading up to Buffalo's Hook waterhole, and hopefully we'll find something either at them or in between on the way. Now there is a little bird's nest that I would like to have a quick look at on this road just up ahead of us. So that's one thing that we can have a quick squiz at. It's a crested francolin sitting on her nest, and it's just in a thicket of grass on the ground, well hidden. I was lucky enough to be alerted to the presence of that nest because I got the fright of my life as she took off from basically right next to my foot. I almost stood on the nest, and she took off from right next to me, which sent my heartbeat rocketing. And there were about, I can't remember how many eggs there were, but I think there were about 6 or 7 eggs in the nest. And then I did come back and have a look with you guys on a vehicle, but it's very difficult to get a view of exactly where she is because the grass is simply so thick. Sorry, I thought I'd driven past it, but it's still up ahead. So I didn't get your name, but I think it's something like Mila, and you would like to know if they do nest on the ground or up in trees, and it is on the ground, like a lot of chicken-like birds, if that's a way of describing them. Guinea fowl, francolins, sand grouse, who else is there in this area? The spur fowl. All birds that kind of resemble chickens and live on the ground will nest on the ground. So, oof, this is going to be tricky. It's worth a try. If she's not sitting on the nest, it'll increase our chance of being able to see her. It's basically just over underneath this arched branch up ahead of us. Okay. So Sens, if you just go to where my finger is, it's literally in a thicket of grass, just in here. I think the bullbar actually might be in the way. If you zoom right into there, that's where she's sitting. But it's so dark that I don't think we would actually be able to see her. Let me see if I can see if she is sitting on the nest. I'll use my binoculars and stand up a little bit, if my earpiece cable allows me to. It's getting tangled up there. I know. It appears like there's nothing on the nest. So, I'm going to go for a closer inspection. Maybe they've all hatched already. So let me just go around. And that could well have happened, or something could have eaten them. Those are the two options, really. Well, I hope they hatched. The fact that I can't see any shells here makes me wonder. Now, this is exactly where the nest was. As I open up this area over here, you'll see there's quite a few feathers. And it was just in this tiny little scrape of earth here where there were about 7 or 8 eggs. And I can't see any eggshells remaining here. So that makes me wonder if something didn't come along and gobble them all up. Something like a monitor lizard would have just eaten all of those eggs whole. And what I'm realizing in following birds' nests and trying to keep track of them is that so often the birds are not successful in even getting their eggs to hatch. There's so many predators that gobble them up before it even gets to that stage of the game. And it's quite sad, actually, that we've been unsuccessful on so many occasions of actually being able to follow through and show you the progress of any fledglings. These ones would have been tricky because as soon as they hatch, they'll start moving with their mother. So there is a chance maybe that they made it, but the fact that we can't see any broken eggshells there makes me think that something ate them. Oh well. If we keep searching for birds' nests, we will eventually be able to have a success story. But so often, that's not the case. And it just makes me wonder, how many times will birds actually attempt to... Sorry, our antenna was just getting stuck on a branch behind us there, but we're all good. It makes me wonder how many times birds have to attempt to actually lay eggs and get them to hatch before they actually get successful. Hey? Can't hear anything. Okay. Faith? I think Faith started asking me a question just before I hopped out the vehicle there. So there we go. I think that's from Francis in Israel. You'd like to know if there are many predators that will eat eggs, birds' eggs, and yes, a lot will. Monitor lizards will. You get snakes called egg eaters, which will also eat the eggs, and a whole bunch really that will be happy to eat eggs. What else will eat eggs? A lot of predatory birds will eat eggs. Mongooses, both dwarf, slender, and white-tailed, so all three of those will eat eggs. Honey badgers will eat eggs. Genets will eat eggs. There's a lot of animals that will eat eggs, and here's another unsuccessful bird nest that we can show you. This was the first one that I tried to follow this season. It was nest of a chagra just in the fork of the tree here, and it appears that the heat this afternoon is possibly slowing down Senzo, but he's on top of things now. So that was another unsuccessful nest that we did see a chagra sitting on, and the next time we came into the area it was not to be seen, nor were any eggs. So I think the moral of the story is that there are a lot of egg-eating predators out here. It's obviously a very easy meal once you found the nest. It's generally not going to be too hard to overpower the adults, and it's a highly nutritious meal. Okay, so we're just approaching a waterhole. Let's see if there's anything up ahead. Hi Catherine, you'd like to know what is the advantage to nesting on the ground? To To be honest, I don't think it's necessarily the fact that birds choose how they nest. It's just the way they're pre-programmed when they're born. So one of the advantages would be that if it's a very stormy and windy afternoon or night, the nest won't get blown out of the tree. That is a reality for the birds that nest in regular kind of cup nests in trees. They're on that kind of a risk, whereas on the ground you obviously won't be blowing around wildly in a storm. Some birds also nest in cavities in trees. Obviously there it's elevated and not going to be affected by stormy conditions, but you have competition with other animals that nest in cavities, like squirrels. Monitor lizards often live in cavities, and they're often well-searched areas. You get the African harrier hawk that can get its leg into the holes in the trees. So I'm not hugely certain that there are necessarily a lot of benefits to being on the ground other than stormy, windy conditions. Other than that, I think you're going to be more vulnerable on the ground. Although, to be fair, I mean, you can find very, very thick spots tucked away that are going to be difficult for predators to find out. It would be an interesting kind of study to do. Who is more, well, which nests are the most successful on average? Those in cavities, those in regular cup shapes, or those that are nesting in little shallow scrapes on the ground? So, sadly, nobody at the waterhole at the moment, but what we might do is find a spot nearby in the shade and hang around for a little bit, see if any animals don't come down for a drink, and while we do that, we'll send you across to Tristan for an update on how he's getting along.
Well, what you can see there is a bird that was in the shade. Unfortunately, it's just flown off, but it's actually landed in a better place for us. And there's a grey-headed kingfisher, should I say, not grey-hooded. We had brown kingfishers. Where is it gone now? It is there somewhere, maybe up a bit further. Somewhere in that general vicinity. There it is. There we go. Now you can see that bright orangey red beak, and then that almost purple blue kind of feathers towards the tail, and that grey head that gives it its name. Now they are beautiful birds. Not a common kingfisher species. You don't see them that often, although in the summer months they start to come and they'll nest in areas like this. So they really like drainage lines, and we're just on the edge of the drainage line close to Buffelshoek Dam, and so you'll find a lot of them in these kind of tambuti and knobthorn thickets that line the edges of these banks. So really nice to see. You can also see it is a hot bird. The wings are slightly out a little bit just to get a bit of breeze, and that mouth is open. So it's practicing gular flutter, which is essentially the same as what that impala was doing, or the same as a cat or dog panting. It's a very, very similar way of things working. So you can see it kind of just keeps its mouth open, and then a rapid breathing rate that will just try and cool itself down. At least it's a lucky individual that it's small and it's in under all the shade, so it should be at least a little cooler than some of the other birds. You can imagine things like vultures and various others must be quite warm in conditions like this. So Bateleur eagles that don't fly very high, they must be getting baked in this. So this is at least lucky that it can kind of get to this undergrowth where it's much, much cooler. But you can see the wings are slowly but surely getting more and more open as it tries to just get a little breeze between the wing and the body just to cool down that particular area as well. Such a beautiful bird, and like I say, a welcome addition to our summer months. We tend to see them in the summer. They're an intra-Africa migrant, so they tend to move around within Africa and even go down towards Durban for the summer months and then back up again. So I do see them quite regularly, like I say, in the summer, which is very, very cool. And they've got a very different color blue to what a lot of the other kingfishers have got. Most of our kingfishers have a more sort of turquoise color. If you think of the woodlands and the brown hoodeds and those kind of things, they tend to have these kind of very turquoise colors, whereas this guy is that more almost purple blue or deep rich royal blue in places, and then purplish towards the wings. So very, very pretty bird. Nice. Well, we're almost at Buffelshoek Dam, so let's go and have a little look and see what's happening there. I don't want to disturb our kingfisher too much. Hopefully it will stay in the shade and enjoy itself. Mary, you say what a beautiful bird. It is very pretty. It's one of my favorite kingfisher species that we get out here. Although it's hard not to like any of the kingfishers. They're all beautiful individuals. individuals. You know, you've got all the blue kind of kingfishers, so the woodlands and these guys and the pygmies and the half-collared and all of those. They're all very, very pretty. And then on top of it, you've got then the pied and the giants, who are slightly different in coloration. So I like the kingfishers. It's a beautiful family and lots of variety within it. Now, unfortunately, Buffelshoek Dam is quiet. I thought maybe we'd find a herd of ellies just meandering around, but only a hippo and 2 Egyptian geese, which is fairly normal for this particular area. So we're just going to catch up with our hippo. It doesn't seem to be Scuba Steve today because he's staying above water, which is always good news. Scuba Steve has this propensity to just kind of go straight under and try and just shy away, whereas this individual, you can see, has kept his head up for us. I don't think it'll stay up for too long. It tends to also go under a little bit. There we go. We're starting to go, oopsie, under and hiding away. So it seems just one hippo actually. It doesn't seem like there are any more, but I'm sure it'll come up now. Remember that they don't hold their breath for all that long. You know, 7 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes for such a large animal is not exactly a long period of time, and it's like they always hold their breath for that long. So I'm sure it'll come back up again just now, but it doesn't seem as though there are any other hippos here. You would have probably seen ears come up. There we go, it's back up again. So he's surfacing, and there's the Egyptian geese in the background as well. So everybody's probably quite happy. I would imagine if I was an Egyptian goose or a hippo, I'd be quite happy to be at Buffelshoek Dam. It's at least deep enough to stay nice and cool. Brad, you're wondering what the update is on the baby hippo. Now, I'd imagine you're talking about the baby hippo at Chitwa Dam. So there's 2 babies there. There's Boo, which is the slightly older of the 2. And as far as I know, they're well. I saw them a few days ago. Was it yesterday, maybe? I think it was yesterday that I saw them, or the day before. And doing absolutely fine. They were moving around, still trying to jump on mom's back, still swimming around next to mom. So it is absolutely wonderfully fine. And I'm sure maybe if Scott's down that side of the world, maybe he'll go towards Chitwa and we can get a little update on our baby hippo a bit later. Now, I've just seen some colour in a tree on the other side of the water there, so I want to quickly have a little look, but my binoculars are all tangled within my radio. So on the tree on the opposite bank there, straight across from us, there seems to be a big white, it's a woodland kingfisher. There we go. So there's a woodland kingfisher just come down for me into that small bush, and somewhere in there it should pick up a bit of white. There it is. There we go. So there's the other of the really beautiful kingfishers that we do see in the summer months that comes for our summer period, and that one's just had a thorough good swim. So you see its feathers are all kind of matted together, so it's had a nice little dip in the water. And a lot of people will see woodland kingfishers and think that they're hunting when they dive into this watery kind of places. There we go, it just went in, and there it goes. How beautiful is that? So absolutely beautiful. And like I say, everyone always thinks that they're hunting when they're doing this, but they're actually not. They're just bathing. So they're going down, cooling the body, getting those feathers in good condition. So it is a common practice from these guys. They're not actually targeting fish or frogs. Now, Guide Monkey, you say there are way too many kingfisher species to be able to all be called kings. So I suppose that's true. I would imagine of the kingfisher species here, the real king is the kingfisher, just because of its size. It is much larger than any of our other kingfishers. None of them come even close to the giant kingfisher, and it is a big bulky bird and is able to wrangle rather large prey items. It's not to say that woodland won't go after seriously big things. I've seen a woodland kingfisher with a mouse the same size as it, so absolutely amazing. There we go, into the water it goes, splashes, and then back up to the tree where it will land. Now, they're not easy birds to keep in frame because they're quite small, and into the shade it's gone. How beautiful are those colors though when they're in that bright sunlight? They're absolutely wonderful. Now, underneath that tree on the bank, which is quite interesting, is there is a terrapin. So there's a little terrapin catching some sun, which is quite nice as well. So there we go, you're having a little face scratch. Hey, little guy. And this particular dam has hundreds of these guys, so it's surprising that there is only one. It must mean that it is very hot when you're only seeing one terrapin on the bank, because the rest must have already warmed themselves up and are back in the water to try and kind of get out of this really hot sun, and so that they don't dehydrate too much. So it's the only terrapin that I can see. Normally you'll see 20, 30 of them kind of along the edges of Buffelshoek Dam, but today it's just one lonely terrapin being accompanied by a kingfisher. Now, James, you're wondering if all of our migratory birds are back. So I would imagine yes, they are, James. I mean, I haven't seen the carmine bee-eaters. I know Scott's seen them, so they must be around. I just haven't been able to see one just yet. And I've been thinking about any of the others. It doesn't seem like there's anybody left, really. We've got pretty much everybody back now. We've got our lesser spotted eagles, steppe eagles, Amur falcons, Lanner falcons are back. I haven't seen any peregrines or Eurasian hobbies, so maybe they still need to come, but let's see. Otherwise, everything, I can't think of any other migratories that haven't arrived yet. Funny enough, what hasn't kind of been prevalent while I think about migratory flight and those kind of things is the butterflies. The butterflies have been really absent so far. Now, I know that generally we see a lot of butterflies kind of later in summer months, but it's really been quite noticeable to see how few butterflies are actually around. Moment, which is sad. I love watching butterflies, and we have such a nice diverse amount of them that it would be really great if some of them came back. It seems as though our hippo is now starting to get quite sleepy. I suppose when you're in the pool like this and you're having a nice kind of time and it's sunny outside, it is a bit glary. Why not close the eyes and just have a little rest? Am I keeping you awake? I'm sorry. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Hippos are the strangest animals. It absolutely amazes me how they kind of have evolved to be the way that they are, you know, with those nostrils on top and eyes and ears all on the same level. It is absolutely amazing that they can just sit just with that little bit of their head exposed and the rest can be underwater. And it's an advantage, particularly in conditions like this, because it means that they don't have to expose any other part of their body at all. You're going to give us a nice demonstration from side on of how that all works, and then under we go. Right, well, I think we're going to leave our hippo there. There's no sort of audio or signs for any other animals that potentially were moving in this direction. I haven't found any fresh tracks for Ellie around here, so I want to just try and check in a couple other places where there might be a bit of water. We'll go along the fire break and maybe towards sort of Sydney's dam side. There's a dam not far from here called Tamburti Dam, and often the Ellies seem to go in that direction. I have no idea how much water is in that dam, but we're going to try and head in that direction and maybe we'll get lucky and we'll find something in that area. Did I see something there? No. I thought I spotted something on the other bank, but it's just a branch. When it's warm like this, often in the shadowy areas, sometimes you'll see kind of with deadish leaves, and it almost looks as though you kind of have a cat that's lying underneath there, but it's just wishful thinking at this stage. Now, failing any of these dams, I think what I'm going to do is try and head towards Tandi's den area, try and see if I can get lucky there and maybe see if she's kind of around and trying to kind of just sit with the cub. And I know it will be hot, so I'm trying to wait a little bit later in the day before I head there. But while I kind of check the boundary and see if there's any tracks coming in, let's go back across to Scotty, who I think was parking off at the dam and seems as though something has...
I couldn't park anywhere, Tristan. It's too hot to stay in one place, even if you are in the ship. So I figured having the wind moving over us as we drive the vehicle would be a better bet. I tried to seek refuge in the Mulwati drainage, but it was short-lived, and now we are back in the baking sun. These Inyana don't seem to be too concerned by the weather, which is surprising because with a thick furry coat, and if I was them, I would definitely be seeking out my food in the shade, not in the sun like they are doing. But I guess they are focusing on making the most of the daylight hours, which is definitely safer for them. And I really hope we do get some more rain, because even in the last few days I can see the grass and vegetation really drying up and not looking as lush as it was a few days ago. And that's from the sweltering heat we're experiencing. It's definitely fair to say that at this time of the year it's not as lush as it ordinarily would be. A lot of the vegetation is recovering from a drought that was experienced kind of over a 2-year period here in the sands, which is making our lives a little bit easier with finding animals because it's not as thick as it ordinarily is. But it's definitely not ideal for the herbivores. And I'm thinking after a very hot day like this, hopefully we will get some rain soon. Mary, you're right, it does look like somebody with a lot more skills than me with the paintbrush has painted on their fur. And the Impala are definitely the Bambis of the African antelope species with the stripes and spots. They are one of my favorites. And their family of the spiral-horned antelopes is definitely one of the most beautiful and striking, the largest of which we get here is the kudu, then the Impala, and then the bushbuck. And there's certain parts of Kenya, sadly not many, where you get another kind of spiral-horned antelope called a bongo, and it's basically like an Impala on steroids. It's a very, very big, bulky antelope, very chunky, lives in thick forests and jungles, and hopefully one day we'll be able to explore an area where you do find bongo, and we'll be able to tick that one off the list. I've never seen one in the wild. They're very, very secretive. I've only seen them in a breeding facility on the slopes of Mount Kenya. Jenny, you would like to know if Tundi, our resident female leopard who's got a tiny little furball cub, would like to eat an Impala, and yes, she certainly would. A female Impala is definitely on the menu for her, and then of course young Impala will also be on the menu. An Impala bull would probably be too much for her to tackle. But an Impala female is a very similar size to an Impala male. So yes, I'm sure she will, and I'm sure she has already snacked on many an Impala. Now this is a first for me driving along this road. I don't know what the name of it is, but I do know that it takes us past a beautiful big tambut tree, which I've just spotted up ahead there. This road, along with one other, has been built since I was away, and this is a very, very well placed road, because this was quite a large area where there was no way to drive a vehicle through, and it takes you past this beautiful big tambuti tree, which I'm sure many a leopard has stashed a kill in and also just had a snooze in. Who knows, maybe there'll be one sleeping in here now. It's good weather for a leopard to be up a tree catching the cool breeze, but it doesn't look like we are in luck. So fear not, Taylor Curdy, all the way up in the Masai Mara, has stumbled upon a lucky scene. She has found what she has been searching for. Why don't you go see what it is?
Scotty D, we did actually find these lions a little bit earlier, but they were fast asleep. But no, never mind. I was going to say that they seem to be a lot less fast asleep, but they've just gone flat, which is typical. But they've moved up from the lugger now, and the wind has picked up, and there's a nice cool breeze blowing across the triangle today. So suppose the sun is not as hot as what it feels like at Juma at the moment, but they're still just resting up, unfortunately, and no sign of all the cubs, just the one. I don't know where the rest of them are. They've obviously, maybe they've been playing a lot and they're exhausted and they are just sleeping off down in the lugger somewhere. But I'm sure the adults will go and fetch them at some point. But it's quite nice though, just to see them out here. It's always good to have some lions. What's today? Is it Sunday? Yes, of course it is, because yesterday was Cat Day. So of course after Cat Day comes Sunday. Sunday fun day. Little lion, do you think it's Sunday fun day? Are you having the greatest time? Maybe. Maybe if your siblings were around to play with, you'd be having a lot more fun now, wouldn't you? But just sitting up. And, you know, it's always like that. I see it with children as well. I'm sure you will all agree with me. You know, you always find, not all kids, some kids, like for instance me, would run around and do their own thing, and were a nightmare for adults because they'd just disappear. And then you get other kids that just want to follow adults around all the time. And I feel like this little lion cub is doing exactly that. As if to say, oh, I'm the favorite, I'm Mom's best child, and I'm just going to follow you around all the time and spend all day with you. That's probably not what they're saying, but that's what I think. But at least that little one has got its head up. But they're quite far away from us this afternoon. I mean, I suppose we could go to the other side, but I don't think the light will be as nice then. And there's the rain. coming over the top of the escarpment. Those very, very dark clouds. It makes for a very pretty scene. Very dramatic. Don't you think? With a lovely gold and tawny colour of lions against the green grass. Oh, Manu, look. Look at this. Now, there are lots of other vehicles who have come to see these lions, but there's a herd of elephants that are just about to pop into frame. There they are. And you can see they've got wet feet, so they've gone through that crossing that I went through earlier. Now they're going down into the lugger. Are you going to go chase the lions? Maybe they're going to chase the lions for us. This could actually turn out to be very exciting. I just hope that the young cubs aren't in there, because they'll be very tiny to try and run away from the big feet of an elephant. And not just one elephant, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elephants moving through here. Looks like 2 adult cows and they're sub-adults that are just coming through, and they're going to go straight towards the lions. That's going to be quite nice, in fact. Hello, big girl. Are you not annoyed by all the cars this afternoon? No, she seems very relaxed. She's just marching on. Now, she's the one that I'm going to keep my eyes on, just because she's the biggest of the lot, so I'd assume that she's the matriarch of this group. And that's the one elephant you really don't want to upset, because if you get her on your bad side, then you're going to have a lot of problems dealing with the rest of the group as well. You might be able to hear some cars driving around. Everyone's just shuffling about in the sighting. Look at all those scratches on her ears. Now, that's just from walking through dense vegetation. They've got such a thick skin that often those thorns can't penetrate the skin. But they do have to be careful, and she has got tattered ears as well. So she's obviously had them hooked on thorns, or maybe been tusked by another elephant. A little bit of damage. Not the worst that I've seen. You tend to see bulls with more tattered ears than the cows do. Obviously the girls are not the ones that are constantly in conflict. It's the boys that do the battling. Just every now and then they have a bit of a shuffle. And there's a tiny little elephant as well, just coming up. Come on. Climb up the hill. It's being encouraged by its younger siblings. They keep helping it. You'll see the trunk every now and then go underneath the little one. There's 2 little ones there. And you can just trunks and ears and tails. That's all it is this afternoon. Careful. Don't fall now. I think it's a bit slippery down in there with all the mud. Now, Brad, you're wondering if the lions that we were looking at would ever attack and eat an elephant. None of these, or this size, especially not these big ones. A young elephant, possibly. However, with the whole herd here, they're very protective animals, not just of their own species, but also of other animals. And we were actually talking about this at the beginning of the game drive, how often elephants will come charging in when lions are taking on buffalo and, sort of disturb that sighting. So no, I think these elephants are safe, but with there being such young calves in this herd, the cows are going to be particularly protective over them and are not going to take any nonsense and might act on the aggressive front, right off the bat, where sometimes they can be quite tolerant because they know how big and strong they are. You can see that one little one picking up the scent of something, just having a little smell around. And that little one, you just see its head every now and then. It's very excited at the moment. There must be some water in there. Oh, that one's got face paint on the right. Oh, and my favorite little friend, Tesla, who is 7 years old. You were wondering if these elephants would ever step on those little lions. Maybe they might. Remember Tesla? We watched that very sad footage on the dam cam where the elephants accidentally stood on the blacksmith lapwing chicks. I don't think they did that on purpose. But remember, a lion is a predator. It's a threat to these young elephants. So I think she's probably going to chase them away. But let's see what happens. Most sightings you have with elephants and lions, once the elephants realize that they're there, and I think she has. You see how she every now and then she keeps turning her trunk? I wonder if she's maybe smelt them. The lioness is just sitting low into the grass though. I don't think they want to move. Let's have a look. She's still just grazing at the moment. She doesn't seem too bothered, and neither do the lionesses, just keeping an eye out. Well, at least one of them is just watching. But they'll go scattering if she does go charging off towards them. All they'll do is they'll probably just run through the lugger and then out onto the other side. They might not even get up and move at all. Maybe this elephant cow is not going to be too bothered with the lions today. They're not always grumpy creatures. Most of the time they're quite placid. Now, Monique, you're wondering if an elephant's ear would bleed if it gets those sort of tatters. Most certainly, there are a lot of blood vessels and veins that are going through their ears, which is why they flap them so often, is to try and cool the bloodstream down directly. But it will stop. I have seen an elephant bull before that had been tusked, and his ear just unfortunately got in the way, and it tore quite a bit. And it was bleeding quite profusely, but I don't think that they would bleed to death. So it was fine, and eventually it stopped. I mean, I saw that elephant. This was quite a few years ago. Then I saw that elephant a couple of times, and he was fine. There was nothing really wrong with him at all. He was quite happy. This is actually a very pleasant interaction, but look what's happened now. Look how this other cow has put all the youngsters together. See how they're all staying close underneath Mom's legs? So they typically will do this. They form these protective circles. So even though we didn't hear any sounds, these elephants are obviously communicating with one another that there is a potential threat around and that we need to be a little bit cautious. See that young cub? Very curious about these large grey giants. Look at that little rufous nape lark above that little lion's head. That's a very brave little bird. At that age, normally they'd be so curious, but I suppose that that little lion has got other things keeping it occupied at the moment. But we've seen on a number of different occasions how young lions that are very keen and learning to stalk will often choose birds as their targets to go for. I think they're quite fun to chase after. Now, I think it was Rachel, you're wondering how close is the elephants to the lions? I would say about 30 or 40 meters, maybe even... No, Joy in Hong Kong. Where did I get Rachel from? Sorry, Joy in Hong Kong. Just making up names as we go along. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Most of the time I'm such an idiot. But anyways, sorry, Joy. So actually maybe a bit more than that. At one point that the one cow was quite close, but that distance is probably about 50 meters or so. It looks a lot closer on camera, but it's quite far away. And it's obviously far enough away for both species to not really care about one another. Lions are quick though. Even that young lion cub would be able to get out the way quite quickly. My only concern was with the new 3 cubs that are in the area that I haven't seen yet. Those are the ones that I was worried about. And you, little tiny tot, do you even know that you're walking past the greatest predator in terms of cats? No? You're just spinning around now. Now, Miss Parker, you're wondering how much milk does a little baby elephant need to drink in a day? I think that was the question. Well, this little one, who is running around like a hooligan at the moment, and probably only a few months old. So it will be predominantly suckling and will suckle for many hours during the day. What are you doing, little elephant? You can hear all the other cars laughing. It's so cute. I think it thinks that it's so big and strong. You go and chase those lions. Shame! It's slipping and sliding. Oh, that is so sweet. Oh, this is so funny. The elephants are so cute at this age. Hey? Full of energy. Have you had an energy drink, little one? Doesn't know what to do with itself. And they get so excited. Well recovered though. I feel like if I was an elephant, I'd probably be this little one, because I do trip and fall a lot, but I don't often make it to the ground. I normally stop myself. Hey Manu. I normally do an ankle wobble and it looks like it's going to be a spectacular fall, and then I come back gracefully. Even when I fall face first into the mud and you watch that live, I still manage to do that gracefully. He's just playing with the older siblings, going, look how big and strong I am. I'm going to charge you and you are going to run away from me. I'm going to knock you off your feet. Perhaps that's its tactic. This little elephant is using its size to its advantage. It's just going to try and break the knees of its siblings. Oh, this is so precious. Oh, it's so sweet. And it always happens like this. Just before the sun goes down, I find that young elephants have the most energy and they just want to play around. And it's an absolute pity that there aren't any other younger elephants of a similar age, because then I can tell you right now, those two would be bumping heads and pushing one another over and climbing on top of one another, which is something that I have not seen for a very, very long time. And that is also really, really funny to watch. But look at that. Look at this elephant's playground. It's beautiful. I would love for it to go over to those lions, though. I don't even think it knows that it's there. Careful, you got ice skates on, so you can just see how slippery the mud actually is. And they've got 4x4 tread underneath their feet. So I think that I probably would have fallen over about 10 times if I was running at that speed that that elephant was going and trying to do sharp turns. Whee! Off it goes. Very, very funny. Oh goodness, it's like we've put this in fast forward. I promise we haven't. This is still a normal speed. Manu, are you not getting dizzy? Manu says he's getting dizzy now. Now he's going to sit down. I love that. I love how the way that they rock back onto their back legs is just to help propel themselves forward a bit better. Oh, nature can make you laugh, and that's my favorite thing. That is my absolute favorite thing of all times. I think it's stopped now, Faithy. It's also quite far away from us, and there's about 37,000 other cars that I have to try and navigate past. Yeah, sorry, Faith, it's so far away. Let's see if they come close, and if some of these vehicles leaves, most certainly we can do one. Sometimes, at one point I thought maybe it got stung on the bottom by a bee or a wasp and it was trying to get rid of it, but I don't think so. I think it is just having a good time and having a bit of a play this afternoon. It's very quiet out here. There's not many birds really chattering other than the odd rufous-naped lark. You can hear them whistling about. Starting to settle down a little bit. Brown's practicing to use its trunk. Tom, you've said that this little elephant has made your day. Me too. It most certainly has. Now look at it. Now it's trying to act like an adult. Yes, now try and do something productive. We is having the greatest time. It'll get tired just now, though. It'll be exhausted. And then it will stop. I also wonder if it's not being stirred up because of all the vehicles that are around here. There's lots and lots of cars in this lion/elephant sighting. Although I don't think the lions are being watched anymore. I think everybody's watching this cutie. Oh, that's so cool. We are so lucky.